There are good men and bad men of all nationalities, creeds, and colors, and if this world of ours is ever to become what we hope someday it may become, it must be by the general recognition that one man's heart and soul, the man's worth and actions determine his standings. Theodore Roosevelt. I actually got that one off.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where the Doge guys just left, they did a full audit of our operations, and they said we can get by just as easily with 2 fewer piss boys and half as many scullery wenches. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this evening. I am your intrepid correspondent, England Cricket Man, and here is your Golden Age of Western Civilization news roundup for the week ending 14 February 2025. Dateline aboard Air Force One over the Gulf of America. President Donald Trump signed a proclamation earlier this week declaring that the body of water formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico shall henceforth be the body of water currently known as the Gulf of America. Personally, I wanted him to take the additional step of naming it the Gulf of America. Fuck yeah. But I guess there is something to be said for good taste and restraint. In a somewhat surprising development, many of the worst people in the world quickly fell in line with the new policy, including Google, Facebook, Apple, but not the Associated Press. Damn it. The AP boldly declared that the Gulf of Mexico is the Gulf they are going to die in. And so the White House said, hey, cool, that's fine. I'm sure we've got plenty of real journalists who would love to replace your pool reporter during the press gaggle in the Oval Office this afternoon. And tomorrow afternoon, and for that matter, all further afternoons until further notice. For their part, the AP immediately had a public Twitter tantrum meltdown and declared that an anti-journalism hate crime had taken place, because of course they did. Because don't let these Trump bastards don't they have any damn respect for tradition and institutional norms? We are the Associated Press, goddammit. We are a hard left advocacy group, the worst of all fake news sludge factories. Our news copy reads like DNC press releases most days, but by God, we wear around the brand of a formerly reputable news organization like a hollowed out skin suit, and you will respect our skin suit, Mr. Trump. What, you think you get to decide who comes into your office just because you're the president or something? I mean, the nerve of some people. Dateline Washington, Tuesday, 11 February. The U.S. Department of Education called this week upon the National Collegiate Athletic Association and the Federation of State High School Associations to revoke all titles, awards, and championships won by male athletes in girls' and women's sports during the 4 years of the Joe Biden administration. The Education Department issued the public appeal a day after it sent letters to both the NCAA and the NFHS requesting that those organizations, quote, restore to female athletes the records, titles, awards, and recognitions misappropriated by biological males competing in female categories, end quote. The appeal comes on the heels of President Donald Trump's signing of an executive order titled, in very Trumpy fashion, Keep Men Out of Women's Sports. Because if there's one thing this reporter can't stand about Donald Trump, it's the way he always beats around the bush and never says what he really means. I mean, it's just intolerable sometimes. The executive order mandates that all educational institutions receiving federal funding under Title IX will either take reasonable steps to exclude male athletes from women's sports, or they can kiss said federal funding goodbye, and their state's voters will then have a lovely opportunity to put their money where their mouths are, since they will have to shoulder a significantly heavier tax burden in order to safeguard the right of big hulking dudes to crush their daughters into the dirt on the playing field and then wave their majestic girl penises around in the ladies' locker room after the game. And speaking of the Department of Education, I don't know if you had a chance to catch any of Linda McMahon's confirmation hearing the other day, but I did very much like how she had Triple H sitting directly behind her left shoulder, glowering up at Bernie Sanders, as if to say, you better be nice to my mother-in-law, because it would be a damn shame if you had to eat a pedigree on top of this table right here. Also arrayed in the front row behind Mrs. McMahon were her daughter Stephanie and her son Shane, marking the first time in the history of Senate confirmation hearings that 4 people who have taken a stone-cold stunner on national television were visible on the TV screen all at once. Is America back? Well, let me tell you something, brother. It's true. It's true. And that's the bottom line. If you smell what curmudgeon is cooking. Dateline Silicon Valley, Wednesday, 12 February. In one of the most dastardly corporate hate crimes in recent memory, Google, of all people, at 2 Google, has removed all references to Black History Month and LGBT Pride Month from its calendar app, saying in a, do you like how they shift the culpability and blame the hate crime on a third party as if they aren't the most powerful company in the whole wide world that can do whatever it wants? But you know who wasn't fooled by all of this shameful obfuscation? The statement has it, quote, return to showing only public holidays and national observances from timeanddate.com. That's the third party that they blame the snafu on. While we are still allowing users, they say, to manually add other important items, end quote. And woke TikTok noticed that too. Woke TikTok is very upset about this all, because when you absolutely need reliable moral clarity on the hottest issues of the day, where else would you rather go but Woke Talk? And Woke Talk says this is a very serious matter indeed. It might seem to some people, you might call them normal, reasonable types, like this is an unimportant non-story. I mean, if your quality of life is negatively impacted by Google removing Black History and Pride Month from the calendar app, you should probably get a better life. Am I right? But no, we can't think that way. And thank God that we have Woke Talk to show us the folly of that thinking, because this is a slippery slope, my friends. One day they're taking Pride Month off the calendar app. The next day they are abducting drag queens off the street and bundling them off to freaking Gitmo, where they will be cruelly deprived of soy milk, nylons, and mascara. It's a recipe for human suffering on an unimaginable scale, frankly. People will die because Google has committed this hate crime against the LGBTQIA2S plus BIPOC community. And as we know, silence is violence. Dayline, Washington, Thursday, 13 February. In a story that puts the Democrats in one hell of an unfortunate rhetorical position, the White House reported this week that 75,000 federal bureaucrats have accepted President Donald Trump's offer of a buyout offer that congressional Democrats have sought to frame as some sort of vicious act of cruelty, which obviously begs the question of, If it's so cruel, why did 75,000 people happily agree to the deal? And why are the numbers accelerating each day? And bear in mind, a good portion, probably most of the people who are taking the deal, they are among the number of federal bureaucrats who've spent the last, God knows, 4 or 5 years pretending to work from home in their jammies because of the scary China virus. Because, sometimes being double masked and triple vaxxed and quadruple boosted just doesn't provide the level of desired protection against the pandemic that ended over 2,000 days ago. And I feel like we should pause here for a moment and point out that not all that long ago, YouTube probably would have pulled down this live stream over me uttering the sentence I just uttered. We're still on the air, aren't we, Jim Eagle?
Affirmative.
The point being, if you spent the last several years receiving full government salary and benefits in exchange for rarely or ever coming into the office, the prospect of receiving that same full salary and benefits for a further 8 months with the added bonus that you no longer even have to pretend you're doing work, well, that probably sounds like a pretty goddamn attractive offer you just got. It seems to this reporter like a fantastic system for incentivizing some of the worst, most slothful, most useless bureaucrats in the whole executive branch to self-deport from the government. Now, if we only had a system like that for the illegals. Dayline Washington, Friday, 14 February. In yet another dastardly hate crime against the alphabet person community, the U.S. Army announced this week that it will no longer permit transgender identifying persons to join the service, and most shockingly of all, they will no longer be performing government-financed gender reassignment surgeries on Army personnel, which comes as a real gut punch, I think, to those Americans who are old enough to remember that glorious day in June of 1944 when we sent a mighty expeditionary force of gender diverse, body positive, neurodivergent social anxiety sufferers with 2 mommies to storm the beaches of Normandy and liberate continental Europe from beneath the yoke of Nazi tyranny? Oh, wait, that didn't happen. It was mostly an army of white cracker-ass peckerwood motherfuckers, as our good friend George Washington might say, Black George Washington. Jim Eagle, you should get Black George Washington on the phone, see if he's available for next week. And for their sexual preferences, well, it was pinups of Betty Grable and Rita Hayworth in fucking GI magazine, and they got along just fine with it. Ever since Pete Hegseth got confirmed as Secretary of Defense, I've been thinking about all those fat, useless, woke desk generals we have currently, the ones who have bad backs from the weight of all the participation ribbons they wear on their chests, and how much it must really chap their asses that they now have to work for a 44-year-old major. And they seemed really especially annoyed the other day when Secretary Hegseth went over to Germany and did morning PT with the troops at 0530. I think they liked it much better when the SecDef was a guy who got up bright and early at 9 o'clock each morning, strapped on his trusty COVID mask and his welder's face shield, and got down to the important work of ridding the U.S. Armed Forces of white male heterosexuals, and occasionally disappearing for an entire week without telling anybody he was hospitalized. But, it happens sometimes, right? That's normal. That's how things went back when the serious, responsible adults were in charge, or at least that's what Uncle Bosie told me right before the cannibals ate him. And if you wanted more roundup than that, well, that's too damn bad, because that is the end. And now this is the part of the proceedings where I toss it over to my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the man who signed a lucrative endorsement deal with Jack Link's Jerky Sticks and didn't even tell any of us about it. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to your Conspiracy Moment with Sasquatch. Can you believe that there is a significant portion of the population, a non-zero percentage of the population, that believe in the concept of a Tartarian empire? That's not how that's supposed to work. There we go. I don't think that's right either, but it's close enough. The Tartarian Empire refers to a group of pseudo-historical conspiracy theories, including the ideas such as a hidden past, mud floods, and originated as a pseudoscientific Russian nationalism. And they buy this stuff and they sell it. You can find your dose of it on YouTube if you look hard enough. How does that make you feel?
I want to talk to the lady that says I can't rock a V-neck.
Oh my God, is this going to happen?
Because I will have her know that I got a very nice unexpected Valentine's gift from Lady Curmudgeon. And I happen to think I look fairly smashing in it. And I'll just leave it at that. Oh, I really don't. The cruelty is killing me.
I'm usually the one that breaks. You're usually the one that breaks character first. Damn it! What have you done to me? But seriously, what do you think about the mud flood? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
There's a combination of conspiracy theories all tied into this, and a lot of these people are also flat earthers, right? And it's basically the idea that there was an overarching global civilization that existed here previous to ours, and that global civilization built most of the infrastructure that we're actually utilizing currently. And it's wild, and that's why they say that's why outside of all the old buildings, the ground has raised a significant number of inches or feet, but it's all over the freaking map and it's literally everywhere. So anything that's ever been buried by anything is said to have been buried by the mud flood and reclaimed after the new enlightenment had occurred.
It's entirely possible that
I mean, I give it a non-zero chance.
that a couple billion years ago, there might have been technological civilizations on Venus, Mars, and Earth, and we wouldn't know it.
We have no clue. The only thing that
because
would survive
the
that long,
calendar has had plenty of time to eliminate any evidence that might exist.
but the only evidence that would still exist from that time period, we're talking billions of years, is cut gems. And if you found a cut gem in a vein of freaking coal or quartz or something, how would you convince somebody that that thing came out of that vein of quartz?
I saw the other day that they've just discovered some sort of quadrangular looking structure on Mars that Elon Musk is really interested in investigating now. We should pull that story up.
Ooh, we can do that. I could try anyway.
Yeah, I only read about it briefly, but it
I've been seeing pictures.
I mean, obviously your first instinct is to just assume it winds up being some sort of optical illusion like the face on Mars and all that
Wait,
good
we
stuff.
never did prove that was an optical illusion. We just got better pictures.
Yes. That were much less facey.
Much less facey being the point. We're going to go earth.com on this one. All right, peoples. It goes a little something.
Hello,
like
Blue Unicorn. Good to see you, my friend.
What's happening, baby? You got a thing, dude. You need to do the thing.
Uh-oh, super sticker. What sort of song and dance do I have to do?
We haven't put together one, but I do have like some of this.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
And I'll figure something else out for later. So there it is.
Should Black George Washington join us next week?
I'm not adverse to it, dude. It's that
wasn't in the script. That came to me organically, actually.
Everybody's loved it that I've seen come across it, dude. That shit kills on black panels. Like they absolutely love it, and I tell them every time. I'm like, I tell him to talk like that all the time. Like he'd be a superstar if he just spoke that way instead of your normal voice.
Oh yeah, black people always respect it when white people can do justice to talking black.
Right, it's impressive. Square-shaped formation found on Mars sparks calls for closer study.
There it is.
Um, admitting that I have no idea what could make a square natural formation. It is not impossible in nature, and so we have
No.
several of them on Earth that people like to point at and try to call it an ancient civilization. But let's play the devil's advocate here and let's say this is a what a fort. It does seem to have a Mott and Bailey construction. It's not a classic star fort, but
I don't remember what the scale of the photograph is, so it's difficult to say
yeah,
without
it could
does
be
the body of the article say?
it could be miles. Let's see. Social media has been buzzing with talk about a strange formation on Mars that looks like a
But
giant
yes,
square and got some rain.
as you say, and you say it correctly, it is really seductive because our brains are conditioned to try and find order where there isn't necessarily order, and there's a lot of things on our own planet that play tricks on us that way. I mean, you do get 90-degree angles in nature occasionally, and you even get more improbably, not even just on this planet, on every planet, every terrestrial planet and moon that we know about in our solar system, you even get hexagonal shaped things. You've got a hexagonal shaped storm on the North Pole of Saturn, for God's sake.
Yep.
How does that happen?
It's very complicated, freaking electromagnetic effects. I mean, I could tell you, but it would be obvious that I don't know what I'm talking about and have only read some crap in a book, you know.
But you can easily see how our ancestors saw certain things in nature and just refused to even contemplate that there wasn't a design behind it.
Right. I mean, as above, so below has run true through dozens of cultures and societies completely unrelated to one another. So, I
Yep,
mean,
and Blue correctly points out that pyrite makes cubes.
right. And certain types of basaltic formations uh, will depending on their cooling, how they cool, whether it's above ground, underground, in contact with the water and whatnot, they'll break up in perfect little square brick sections.
Andy Pickle brought up terraforming, and I've heard a couple of conversations recently about how it might be possible to terraform Mars on timescales that are much more human and much less geologic. Not certainly not
Okay.
a single human lifetime, but maybe a couple of human generations. It could be done, depending on the type of resources that you were willing and able to
So
bring to bear on the project.
the resources being the primary issue, Mars has too low of a gravity. Anyone who goes to live on Mars will be stuck there for the rest of eternity. Their children will
And
be
we
stuck there.
we still don't have a good enough idea of how much water is available to us. Not only to support human habitation, but to make rocket fuel with, and that's
I
still
mean,
a gigantic unknown that places huge constraints on your capacity to plan human colonies and whatnot.
perhaps we should wrangle a few comets first. Let's jumpstart
Okay,
it geologically. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
go out and freaking just wrangle us up a couple of comets and drop them in the basin over there. What's the worst that could happen? We wake something up, take it as it be taken as a threat. We are a threat, though. We might be an infection of the universe.
I still want to know if Scotty Waddles is okay.
Yeah, no, he seemed to be having a bit of a moment last night sometime. I
I'd
don't
feel
know.
better about it if he was here with us now.
Yeah, I don't understand why he's not here. I'm a little worried about him. Not gonna lie. So we have the JD Vance speech to Munich speech in Munich, right?
Yes, the Munich Security Conference, one of the big globalist powwows every year where they all just stand around and talk about how awesome and amazing each other are.
Now, I haven't seen this, but I have it on good authority from people who recognize such things. I was told by a rather large black fellow that J.D. Vance put his dick in it. And I don't know exactly what that means. But I tell you, but like I said, I have it on good authority. Something interesting has happened.
Hello, lawyer chick. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
The children of the night. No,
Don't make me use my NPR voice.
we could totally do NPR if you wish. No, let's not do that. Instead, you got anything else you want to cover before we jump into this?
Jump into this.
All right. So I have advanced it just a hair after the introduction, and JD Vance is walking up to the podium.
This is going to be good. I'm so excited.
Thank you. And thanks to all the gathered delegates and luminaries and media professionals. And thanks especially to the host of the Munich Security Conference for being able to put on such an incredible event. We're, of course, thrilled to be here. We're happy to be here. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, of course, our shared values. And, you know, it's great to be back in Germany. As you heard earlier, I was here last year as United States Senator. I saw Foreign Secretary David Lammy and joked that both of us last year had different jobs than we have now. But now it's time for all of our countries, for all of us who have been fortunate enough to be given political power by our respective peoples, to use it wisely to improve their lives. And I want to say that, you know, I was fortunate in my time here to spend some time outside the walls of this conference over the last 24 hours. And I've been so impressed by the hospitality of the people, even as, of course, as they're reeling from yesterday's horrendous attack. And the first time I was ever in Munich was with my wife, actually, who's here with me today, on a personal trip. And I've always loved the city of Munich, and I've always loved its people. And I just want to say that we're very moved, and our thoughts and prayers are with Munich and everybody affected by the evil inflicted on this beautiful community. We're thinking about you. We're praying for you, and we will.
Damn, he is good.
I just want to start by saying what an absolute joy it is to finally once again have a bearded vice president.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that.
Because as everybody knows on this program, we abide by the rule: never trust a beardless man.
That is true.
Unless his name is Donald Trump. He's the only guy who gets a beard.
Can you imagine him with a beard?
Oh, God, that would be the most alpha thing ever.
We got to get on the AI with that. Dude,
you would have to invent a new letter above alpha to describe it.
That's fucked up. We have got to get on that with the AI. That's your job. You do that.
We'll certainly be rooting for you in the days and weeks to come. Now, I hope that's not the last bit of applause that I get, but we gather at this conference, of course, to discuss security. And normally we mean threats to our external security. I see many great military leaders gathered here today. But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values shared with the United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that canceled elections. Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build. As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe. And we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes
I stand in awe of the fact that that man is only 40 years old.
Right?
Yeah, he's got it all put together, man.
I am a bit in awe of the collection of military salad that I see in front of me.
And you know what else is awe-inspiring? Is how offensive so many of the people in the room thought that speech was.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. That's a lot of bombs right there, bro. That is a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
got that right.
They are just itching to use them too. They've been sitting around for years. Ain't nobody used none of them recently. We just gotta blow some shit up, bro.
They're gonna fall over from the weight of all that fruit salad on their chests.
Damn right. This one's going straight to the bottom. When he falls off the boat, he's fucked.
sometimes not so clear.
How many wars have you been in, sir?
Of the
This is the typing pool. This is the Air Force.
This is the Faithful Service Award. This is the Meritorious Service Award. This is
what was the line from "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker," where the two guys had all the awards, and one of the guys had lost his eye in a paperclip battle in '76. he was actually in a war zone and lost his eye, so they just gave him a Purple Heart, but he was in the press corps. So like he was just typing shit and got involved with some shenanigans and lost an eye. Assisted living, yeah. Those are definitely gated community occupiers. That is absolutely for certain.
But yeah, but we're only barely joking here, because a lot of those assholes really do want a war, just so they can say that they were involved in one.
Yeah,
there is no career military man that wants his whole life to pass in peacetime.
Oh, that's so. That's not good. That's not good, sir. It's not good. Nope, not at all. That's sad. I'm sorry. That just gave me thought processes I didn't like. Degenerate anti-gravity. What did I see?
Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Quran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation.
Okay. His penis has been inserted into the speech, and now he's just going to stir it around a bit. I see.
And let's and he's raising a salient point, because let's talk
Yes.
about what the reality is, not only in the UK but also in Britain and France, and you can go right down the list of pretty much most EU countries that, as a practical matter, they all have Islamic anti-blasphemy laws. They don't sound like Islamic anti-blasphemy laws when you read them in the law book, but as a matter of enforcement, they are only enforced against people who cause offense to Islam, like the guy just last week in Manchester, I think it was, who got arrested for, he burned a Quran, which shouldn't be a crime in any country that purports to be a free place that values freedom of speech and expression. Two guys attack him, and I think he got stabbed. One guy had a knife. One guy just beat him up. But all three of them got arrested, and all three were charged with a pretty much commensurately equal level of crimes. So the guy who just set fire to a thing, and the guy who stabbed him for doing that, and the guy who punched him for doing that, British law views them all equal. And that, like I say, as a practical matter, you've got Islamic blasphemy laws, because if you reverse the religions, that would never, ever, ever happen if an Islamic guy burned a Bible and a couple of Christians attacked him.
That's true. And there's another thing on that, which is like the unwritten aspect of enforcement. I see this as a concession to the immigrants coming in, that we will discipline our people. Don't be chopping their heads off, right? Because that's what happens. That's where it goes. You either get chunked from a high place or have head and hands removed, right?
Yeah, and for example, in Germany, where you know they continue to have more and more jihadi attacks every week, it seems like, but their government is more concerned with arresting young people who dance to songs with anti-government lyrics than
exchanging memes.
And meanwhile, there are vast swaths of many big German cities where the police simply don't go because they can't go because they'll get killed. And any Jewish person who tries to go there will get killed too. So it's an interesting case of misplaced priorities, I would submit.
Well, I mean, it's a lack of assimilation, obviously. The individuals entering these spaces simply refuse to assimilate and bring all of the basic understandings of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness from their own homeland. And also, incidentally, the place starts looking like the old homeland as well, because that's all the skills and talent and consideration that they're bringing is to do the same thing here that they were doing back home.
And when Angela Merkel 10 or 11 years ago, because she was the prime mover behind the whole project, and remember, it was the Syrian refugee crisis that precipitated the whole thing. She just announced one day that Europe was going to have to throw open the doors to all of these people from the Middle East. But don't worry, it'll be okay because they will assimilate themselves seamlessly into our European cultures. They will learn our European languages. They will learn to love and embrace our European democratic values. And how the hell did that work out a decade later?
Well, I mean, okay, the railing of democratic values, the concept of democracy is far overutilized in the modern parlance. Most people
Yes.
say democracy.
It is just a word that people say.
Most people, when they say democracy, they think America's not a democracy, it's a representational republic if you can keep it. And the lockdowns, every single bit of activity that took place between the two Trump presidencies seemed to be a speed run on trying to become a European collection of states rather than the United States.
Queen Bird raises an interesting point. And the thing it makes me think of is the fact that compared to all of the Western European democracies, Muslim immigrants have generally done a much better job assimilating into the United States than they have anyplace else. And I don't know if I have an easy answer for why that is.
I got one because I've encountered it directly. In America, you can come here, you can establish a business, you can generate revenue and profit and purchase land in the middle of nowhere and then go build your little shitty conclave over there by yourself. And it doesn't matter whether you're a redneck from Alabama or somebody from India. It makes no difference. If you show up, you put in the work, you put in the effort, you too can have your own little compound up in the mountains, out in the desert, out in the grasslands, wherever you want it. Nobody cares. That's why you don't have as much of a problem. They don't directly usually have to assimilate unless they are associating in large cities. And I've delivered,
and that's the thing. It's when they wind up all concentrated in certain sectors of big cities is when everything seems to go sideways and when you wind up getting no-go zones.
Yeah, the no-go zone concept. It might work in some places. I had a job where I was delivering windows at one point, and with no discussion with my boss, I carried a pistol everywhere I went. I had it in my pocket the whole freaking time. Every day I went to work, it was right there because I might have to drive across state and deliver windows to some, and it wasn't the hood type places that bothered me. There were times when I delivered windows out on like distant mountain roads up 3 and 4 mile long driveways and stuff. And you get out there ain't a soul nowhere near this place, but there might be a bear. Like you way out there, bro.
The point being, when you purport yourself to be a liberal democracy, a functioning liberal democracy, and there is any place in your country where the cops and the government just won't go because the residents might kill them, then you are not a functioning liberal democracy.
No, that's true. Once the basic services refuse to be administered in some places due to safety concerns, yeah, you got a problem. You have an occupation.
Let's hear Mr. Vance a little more.
Yes, sir.
Misinformation like, for example, the idea that coronavirus had likely leaked from a laboratory in China. Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree. Now we're
Wow.
There's like 2 people in the room that clap for free speech.
I mean,
I will let that stand as a monument to itself.
right.
offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
Yay!
That guy. Anybody know who that guy
I
is?
do not like this man's words.
I feel like he's signaling for someone to take the shot.
He's saying you're number 1, JD.
Wow.
Now we're at the point, of course, that the situation has gotten so bad that this December, Romania straight up canceled the results of a presidential election based on the flimsy suspicions of an intelligence agency and enormous pressure from its continental neighbors. Now, as I understand it, the argument was that Russian disinformation had infected the Romanian elections. But I'd ask my European friends to have some perspective. You can believe it's wrong for Russia to buy social media advertisements to influence your elections. We certainly do. You can condemn it on the world stage even. But if your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising from a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with.
You, sir, may circle the bases now.
Yeah. Take you a lap, bro. You get one for the winner's circle. Somebody get
Flip
this
that
man.
bat, take your sweet ass time.
We need to get his wife to get him a cock ring if he doesn't already have one. I'm just saying, bro, that man should enjoy sex more. I want good things for him. I really like what he's doing. Yeah. All right, people. So what we do is we come up here each week and we try to get each other to break character, and that's twice, both of us. I blame JD Vance for being such an alpha Chad. Like, holy shit.
It's
Dude,
the
you
beard,
realize
dude, I'm telling you.
Half the people in that room have access to actual hitmen.
And
I'm talking like SOCOM.
I bet every one of those pussy ass pissed off generals has got a bald, beardless face.
They do. I've seen them. Except for that Arab fellow. He had a banging beard.
Now, the good news is that I happen to think your democracies are substantially less brittle than many people apparently fear. And I really do believe that allowing our citizens to speak their mind will make them stronger still. Which, of course, brings us back to Munich, where the organizers of this very conference have banned lawmakers representing populist parties on both the left and the right from participating in these conversations. Now, again, we don't have to agree with everything or anything that people say. But when political leaders represent an important constituency, it is incumbent upon us to at least participate in dialogue with them. Now,
this has given me some really weird vibes. Hold on. I remember a scene.
There is nothing worse than an untrustworthy, beardless official. God damn it.
Yeah, right? No, that's wrong. So there's a scene where this guy gets fired from a restaurant and he grabs the freaking announcement and he's like, screw you, screw you, screw you. You're
Empire
cool,
Records.
you.
Jim Brewer.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. I want to put that scene in this interview.
Yeah, it's not a bad
just
one.
right there where they were supposed to clap. Like when he's standing in Germany going, and also the Germans suck. You suck, you suck, you there, you suck especially hard, sir. Sir, you suck. This guy over here sucks. You didn't even clap, you sick fuck.
Yeah, that's been one of my go-to movie references for many years now.
I gotta go find it. I'm gonna get a clip of that. Absolutely.
To many of us on the other side of the Atlantic, it looks more and more like old entrenched interests hiding behind ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation, who simply don't like the idea that somebody with an alternative viewpoint might express a different opinion or, God forbid, vote a different way, or even worse, win an election. Now, this is a security conference, and I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target. And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you.
Did I just hear him agree with the concept of America World Police? Did he just say, we'll send our boys in, but y'all got to step up and pay for it or something? Wait, what did I just hear?
Well, yeah, because that's the reality. Let's face it. The world as we would like it to be currently constituted requires a benevolent hegemon, and we're the only people available for that role right now, if we want to get down to brass tacks.
I honestly expected China to step into the Afghan/Iraq vacuum that was left.
They don't have a blue water navy, and we do.
Right. Okay.
Much of which we owe to our British naval tradition. So
I want to hear that part again.
Alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you, how will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we're defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many, many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact that we all believe is so important? And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people. Europe faces many challenges, but the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump. You need democratic mandates to accomplish anything of value in the coming years. Have we learned nothing that thin mandates produce unstable results? But there is so much of value that can be accomplished with the kind of democratic mandate that I think will come from being more responsive to the voices of your citizens. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America. You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail, whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news. Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society. And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration. Today, almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course, it's gotten much higher since. And we know the situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade.
You suck. You suck. That dude behind you sucks. This guy sucks. Y'all all did this. It's your fault we're having this conversation. You made me do this. That about right?
I'm gonna throw out the question that I think he's trying to drill down to, and that question is this: how much censorship can you actually have and still call yourself a liberal democracy?
Right. Right. Exactly. Sir. You've yes, sir.
We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting for political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children. And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly.
Wait, hold on. Did he just reference Stalin, Ed Marx with those two?
I can see why the people in the room were squirming a little bit.
Right? He looks angry. He looks pissed. It's like Daddy came home and he's going to fuss at us again. He's very disappointed in us.
Well, and all he's doing is asking the same questions that normal citizens in these countries have been asking for years and years now, and they never seem to be able to get an answer to from any of their leaders. So why shouldn't they be asked? And if it takes our vice president going over there to ask them, then good for him and more power to us.
Amen, brother.
As educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy, what no democracy
Hold on. I want all of that.
of Greta Thunberg scolding, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Absolute pin drop in that room.
I want to put a question to you right now, and to the viewers. If I had told you 24 months ago that in January of 2025, Donald Trump would have a cabinet with Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in it, and Elon Musk would be the guy taking a blowtorch to the deep state.
I'd say pass.
You would have told me I was on
I want
track.
to hit some of what you're smoking. That's the best weed in the room. I swear to God. I want some of that stuff.
Yep.
That shit. Like, I don't know what you're on, but I want some. And here we are. We're not even high and it's happening. Like, this
Nobody
is
would have ever taken you seriously if you proposed that scenario.
I can kind of see Tulsi Gabbard being tapped. Not for where she ended up, to be honest. I was not expecting that. But I'm not sure how I feel about that either, because I don't know. Is she the headsman now? Like, what are
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that one's going to go. I just know it is a very good thing that he got all of his people confirmed, and he managed to get through the first few weeks this time without giving the bastards any scalps like he did last time with General Flynn, which was a huge mistake, which you've all heard me talk about before, and backfooted him and made them really get more emboldened than he should have let them get, and it kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was no participation by the federal government to do anything that Trump was doing unless it was done publicly in front of the American people. Everybody just shrugged at it. It was like, don't say nothing about it. It's like it never, and you can tell.
How much more impressive is the team that he's assembled for the second administration compared to the first administration?
I love his press secretaries, bro. Oh my God, there's such.
Just in the cabinet, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson to Marco Rubio. Are you kidding me? That's a night to day upgrade. Attorney General Jeff Sessions to Pam Bondi. Are you freaking kidding me? That's a no brainer. And you can go right down the line. Really, I think every single one is an upgrade over the previous one, and I'm loving it.
What's her name? Caitlin. Who's the press?
Caroline Leavitt.
Caroline, thank you. I always get that wrong. Caroline is just as much, if not more, of a savage than the previous Trump press chick.
Just like I can't believe J.D. Vance is only 40, I can't believe she's only 27.
I mean, just freaking wow. And listen, here's another thing. How many press conferences did Biden do in the last 6 months of his term?
I would submit that he never did any actual press conferences, because even on the few occasions when he pantomimed a press conference, he called on certain reporters reading off a list on a note card who had submitted pre-screened questions. So that's not a press conference.
That's true. That is very true. And we all saw it happen.
And we all saw it happen.
And they tried to run that man. They wanted to run that man against Trump until he just couldn't keep it together in a freaking debate.
And they probably still would have been better off running him.
Ooh. Oh, that's terrifying.
Well, because what happened in the end?
German democracy.
Sorry.
She outperformed Biden in 0 out of 3,300 counties in the country.
Right.
If you had that on your bingo card, you're fucking rich.
So what you're saying is that is even up to the election, had it been an election between Kamala and Biden, Biden would have still won
No, he would have lost less badly.
less badly against Kamala.
No.
No, I'm saying if it had been come up to a vote for Kamala or Biden, Biden would still have won even after the debate.
Oh, that's a different question. Like if they had thrown it open to a primary.
Right. If they'd had a full primary and it would have been straight up Kamala versus Biden, who would have won that?
I think he still wins.
You think he still wins as a cadaver?
Yeah. And I think it's probably not very close.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I mean, Kamala's just so unlikable.
Well, and she's just as incoherent as him, but she doesn't have the excuse of advanced senility.
But
So
she
that's the
says
problem.
words. That's worse.
Yeah,
He said nonsense.
it's just throwing words out there. Like, what word can I think of next? Just
Yep.
we systemic and granular and what other
Venn
adjectives do I
diagrams.
know? Venn diagrams. I love Venn diagrams and school buses. And I used to clean my collard greens in the bathtub. Isn't that folksy and relatable? I mean, come on. How could you not vote for me?
See what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle
You're smirking
that
at
the
him.
voice of the
Those
people
assholes.
matters.
I'm wondering how well
Smirking
this
like
is
a bunch
being.
of douchebags.
I'm wondering how well this is being translated.
You do always have to wonder about that, and that's an outstanding point to bring up.
Is it not possible this interpreter might be taken backstage by some of the fellows in this room and be given the old 9mm injection?
Well, and
You
aren't
can't
interpreters
talk to these people like that.
aren't interpreters prone to all the same sorts of biases that many other people in the political sphere are? So if you were an interpreter who really didn't like the sound of what you were hearing from Vice President Vance and it was really pissing you off, wouldn't that inevitably have some effect on the character of the translation you were transmitting to these guys?
Hopefully not so much, but I guess so.
You
don't like that
have to acknowledge that it's a possibility. I
I
think.
don't like that thought.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's exactly the same thing I'm saying there. It's like, how much do you
Well, yeah,
trust?
and how many diplomatic disasters down through history might have been attributable to imperfect translations?
Right? Tower of Babel did a number on us, didn't it?
Yep.
Let's see how it's going.
There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in the great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to
What did I miss?
He's hitting them below the belt on a few things, which is fine with me.
What was that he just said that I missed?
It's not about your stone buildings and your fancy hotels.
Okay.
Because let's face it, he's
our citizens.
sorry, he's reaching for a very salient point, which we've discussed before, which is that for so many elected politicians and officials today, their lives just turn into flying to fucking seminars and conferences and symposia and staying in hotels and giving speeches and listening to speeches and never doing any actual work that is supposed to be the work that's associated with the job that you ostensibly hold and get paid for doing.
Ostensibly being the operative term.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it does appear as though, at least, I'd say since the second Obama turn, the schism between the desires of the public at large versus what the governments have decided to do has widened distinctly.
And hey, Ajot, and much of that schism was self-inflicted by that administration, I would submit. Because
Right.
I mean, we all remember what happened there. When Obama got elected in 2008, they told us we were now living in a wonderful utopian post-racial America where
Post-racist
none of that stuff mattered anymore because we had elected a black guy president. We can leave that stuff all in the past, and that lasted right up until he was a fairly unaccomplished first-term president who was blundering around, looking fairly incompetent, and was in fairly serious danger of not being reelected. And then
But he was at least an excellent speaker.
all the race huckstery stuff joyously came back in.
Is that me glitching or him?
Living with it right up to the present day.
You've frozen.
I'm back.
Good. Welcome back.
Was that me or you? Let's finish the speech. I want to hear the parting shot.
Citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, "Do not be afraid." We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership. Thank you all. Good luck to all of you. God bless you.
That was, I'm going to say something that might be excessively bold, but I'm going to say it anyway. I would submit that is the greatest speech given by an American in Europe since Reagan told Gorbachev to tear down the wall.
Tactical nuke incoming!
I think maybe that needs to be shortened up here.
If I'd known I was getting a tactical nuke, I would have said something better.
I don't know. It was pretty good, dude. It was well placed. I think.
I'm so incredibly impressed with that speech. I'm glad we watched that.
Me too.
I hadn't seen the whole thing. I had just seen a couple of snippets, but it was powerful the whole way through. I don't even think it had any weak spots.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to that scene in Half Baked. That's what it looked like to me.
Yes, I apologize for getting the movie wrong.
Yeah, we have to issue a retraction or something, right? How's that work?
I know.
We'll put it on
Axios will come after us with a fact check.
We'll get fact checked. Oh no.
We'll get fact checked by one of those fake news sludge factories that keep getting busted for being on the take from the government for writing favorable stories. Because it's fun how that keeps happening, isn't it? First it was Politico, then it was Reuters, and I think there was another one since then. But yeah, Joe Biden was paying all kinds of people for favorable coverage. It's funny how that works out, and they still get mad when we call them fake news.
We'll end up with one of them blue boxes under our videos again.
Oh, I know. They
remember for like a good 6 months there, we couldn't do a show about nothing. We talked about history, we talked about all kinds of stuff, but we'd always end up with either a climate box, a misinformation box, or a full explanation box about some detail that we said somewhere through it. That by the way, turns out, now
Yeah,
that we're
and
starting to get
freaking
records,
freaking
turns
YouTube,
out,
man, they rode that horse all the way into the ground. They left that presidential election advisory box on every video that discussed anything even remotely tangentially related to electoral politics, right up until election day, all the way from first week of November to third week of January. It was right there. And who is this for? Like, is there anybody doubting the outcome? YouTube? I mean, who are we helping here? Are you, because I feel like you're just doing this out of spite because you don't like the fact that Trump won the election.
yeah, no, I'm catching some of that flavor myself. Like, I can't find very many positive Trump channels out there. And there have to be millions of them, man. They're everywhere. Every asshole with a cell phone's doing a positive Trump stream somewhere, and yet you can't find them.
It must
How's
get
that work?
difficult suppressing it all. I mean, you probably got to apply lots of full-time employees to that suppression operation.
Right? Wow. It's one of those things, dude.
And who the hell is making videos boosting the Democrats right now? I mean,
Pay chills, and they just had their pay cut.
have we seen either party in a worse position in this century than the Democrats are in right now?
I mean, dude, here's the part I don't understand. You just watched the entire implosion of an election cycle take place, but they seem to want to double down on exactly the same narrative. They're using the Hollywood speech, dude. They're using the Hollywood speech. It's not our fault we lost. It's your fault for being a bigot.
They don't seem chastened in the slightest. They don't seem self-referential in the slightest. They don't seem to have any curiosity about why they lost an election that they didn't think they had any chance of losing. And that's something that you should be inquisitive about if you ever want to win a fucking election ever again.
Absolutely. There's also something to be said there about them believing their own propaganda, right?
Yeah,
They
indeed.
bought into their own line and their own narrative so well that they thought there was no chance of losing. And then
We can't lose to a convicted felon. Like, that would ever happen.
Right. Anybody want to sing around and proud to be an American? No? Yes? I don't know. We'll get together and do it.
Proud to be an American, well, at least I know.
So we got some straight up headlines over here, and they're straight out of the AP, which I need a different website to derive our news from. Apparently, the AP is not quite as reliable as.
We love the AP. They are our favorite hollowed out skin suit.
Okay, we'll keep using the AP, but we need to add a different source as well.
Oh, but the AP is fun just for the comicalness of their bias. I don't even know if comicalness is a word, but I just made it a word.
Well, I've noticed that I have never seen a good picture of Trump on the site anywhere ever.
Oh yeah, never ever.
It's always like this, where he looks like he's being an asshole to somebody, right? Or like
and
this.
There are completely different words in the headlines that they only use according to which party currently holds the White House.
Okay, let me read you a few of these because they are kind of funny. It says Trump administration wants the Supreme Court to let the firing of whistleblower agency head proceed, right? Doge reversal, firings of U.S. nuclear weapons workers halted. Trump administration cuts reach FDA employees in food safety and medical devices and tobacco products. Trump moves with dizzying speed on his to-do list, but there are warning signs in his first month. I wonder what those warning signs are that your ass is
let's
fired.
read about the warning signs.
I mean, this is pretty much another round of The Apprentice, and I'm here for it. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
You're fired. You're all right.
Fired. I mean, the one thing we can agree that the American government is bloated. It has been the victim of so many cases of misappropriation and malappropriation of funds that it is absolutely ridiculous. And even after all of this stuff takes place, you can just about guarantee that all the new sweetheart deals will, of course, be a down party lines. Of course. Of course.
And I will always stand in awe of the fact that Joe Biden had the absolute worst cabinet in the history of the Republic, and not a single person got fired in 4 years.
You've got a point there. Homie was hijacking luggage off the carousel.
Oh, when have we ever seen all the same cabinet secretaries from the start to the end of a presidential administration? That's completely mental. That has never, ever happened before until Joe Biden.
So, associated propaganda.
Oh yeah, they're hopping mad about not getting their automatic seat in every briefing and press gaggle. That's just not going to be tolerated. But it makes you wonder.
Go ahead.
In their obstinacy about refusing to change their style guide from Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America, what is their desired outcome here? What is it they think that they're holding out for? Like, do they think that Trump is just going to capitulate and say, okay, we'll switch it back to Gulf of Mexico. You were right. I surrender. Because I'm sorry, that's not going to happen, you fucking douchebags.
Was there a response from Mexico on that, by the way? Did they say anything about that?
Yeah, I think the cartel stooge president of Mexico declared it some kind of anti-Latino hate crime.
Wow, that's probably exactly what was said.
But it is strange. It is strange, I would submit, that self-styled leftist progressives would be so eager to retain a name that was installed by genocidal Spanish European conquistadors.
So there's a headline over here that just makes me wonder about these massage therapists. Seven. That's this many for those of y'all who never got out of middle school. This many. 7. Okay, 7. More massage therapists accuse Ravens Tucker of sexually inappropriate conduct. Now, usually I try to be as, magnanimous as possible. 7? Sir, you may have a problem.
Yeah, that's the same question I was about to ask.
7.
Because, I mean, for those fans keeping score at home, that's 7 more massage therapists than I've ever been to. But that's just me.
That's true. Same here. I was hooked up with.
But I'm not a fancy pro athlete, so he might need lots and lots and lots of massages.
I need lots
at lots of different Asian strip mall massage parlors, allegedly.
Wait, Squatch, can I go to massage therapy? Why not? Okay. Probably not going to happen.
It's a professional massage for athletic purposes.
It's a professional massage for athletic purposes. I'm an athlete. I have to be in my peak performance. I'm ticklish. Forgot. She just reminded me.
We won't win the game unless I get the Bangkok testicle massage.
You win this one, sensitivity and autism. Curses foiled again. Like, why are you touching me?
Yeah, I think I think the argument's not going to end well for the cartel stooge Mexican president. I think she's not going to get. If it's her against Trump, I think most people are probably going to go with what Trump says.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's easier to go along than it is to fight at this point.
That is a thing that never would have occurred to me in 1,000 years. Changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, until I heard Trump mention it, like the second day he was in office. I said, "Well, okay, I'm fine with that." I didn't know it was a thing. Never would have occurred to me, but let's do it because America, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
America. Fuck
So
yeah.
here's an interesting thing. They recently had a bunch of reporters crawling all over North Carolina and Kentucky up there that got hit by the hurricane recently, and they were walking around asking how they felt about the idea that Trump was going to abolish FEMA. And apparently, the responses were overwhelmingly in favor of doing so.
Yep.
Everyone was like, "Oh, screw them, get them out of here." I mean, they didn't do anything. In fact, for the most part, as far as I could tell, all they did was show up and try to enforce things like OSHA and MSHA rules, right? Federal versions of that. And so when the redneck Air Force come rolling in with helicopters and airplanes to drop shit in the middle of nowhere, which is exactly what you happen to need in that situation, they started like depriving them of airspace by pulling their flight plans. And that's no bueno. Now the argument could be made
because you know what that is. That's FEMA and the FAA getting into a fucking bureaucratic administrative deep state dick measuring contest, which is exactly what you get when you've got a government that radically needs to be downsized.
Right. And so the mere existence of something called the Redneck Air Force gives me great hope for this country.
We used to have the Confederate Air Force, but they changed their name because they capitulated to the wokesters.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's not a natural disaster on Earth that a Redneck Air Force and a Cajun Navy can't meet head on.
Trump should make the Confederate Air Force change back to their real name. I bet if he said it, they would do it.
Just hint it real hard.
Did you ever go to any air shows back in the day when the Confederate Air Force existed?
This is news to me. I was unaware of the Confederate Air Force, which is interesting.
It was just what they called themselves. It was the main group of people who acquired and maintained World War II vintage aircraft, you know, during the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Yeah, right. All the air shows with all the old planes for the Confederate.
And they had so much awesome merchandise, and I wish I could remember their code of honor. It was like we will never surrender to any damn Yankees, and it was great. I think I used to have a back patch with that on there. But
well, I'll tell you, the War of Northern Aggression.
And then, because we're not allowed to have nice things, the fucking wokesters and their pressure groups came and said, "Oh, you can't glorify the Confederacy, so you have to change your name." So they've been the commemorative Air Force ever since. I don't know. It's probably been 20 years ago now, but what a goddamn shame. What a stupid thing.
I got a question for you, inspired by this here thing in front of me. What kind of damage do you reckon the wildfires are going to end up doing to the ocean once all that stuff washes off of it? I mean, how often does it rain in California?
It's funny you should bring that up, because it's kind of the proverbial Ouroboros of wokesterism eating its own tail, because the reason we don't have as effective firefighting infrastructure as we could have is because we don't have desalination plants along the coast. We don't have desalination plants along the coast because the animal hugger wokesters didn't want us to inconvenience some ridiculous little sea slug. And now all those ridiculous little sea slugs they wanted to save by not building the desalination plants are going to perish anyway from the toxic fucking runoff from all the houses that just burned down because there was no fire in the hydrants. Good night. We'll be here all week.
Right, man. Like, how do you stay elected?
In California?
Yeah.
Well, it's a combination of
don't murder someone on national TV.
Driver's licenses for illegals, plus motor voter, plus a whole big, huge captive public employee unions, and your party can pretty much reign forever, no matter how terribly you govern.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I don't have that video handy. I just noticed the thing over here, and I forgot when I typed backstage over here. I apologize.
Oh yeah, I heard about that incident, but I still haven't seen the video. We
I'm
should
gonna find
remember
it.
that for next week.
I haven't found it yet, but I will find it. If I'd found it, we would be watching that now.
Yeah, we're gonna open with that next time if you find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about that time.
It's about that time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius this lovely Sunday evening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And I might be biased, but I still disagree with the lady who said I can't rock a V-neck. We'll see you next week. I hope you have a lovely week in which we can all wake up every morning to news that is good and happy and edifying, and we should relish and cherish always whenever we have a chance to do that. So let's all keep ourselves reminded of that. We will see you next week. Same Curmudgeon Sasquatch time and channel. Have a great week. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money.